Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Amber Jahanzeb. Today we are here with Yasmine Youssef, Executive Director of Nisa Foundation. Welcome, Yasmine.
Thank you. Thank you.
Earlier, we were talking about some great ideas, Yasmine, and you were talking about social enterprise. So, what does social enterprise mean to you?
So for me, it's a bit about creating programs and opportunities that are that have a ripple effect or that have a self-sustaining aspect to it. So it's not just about here's a charity, let's collect money and give money and just let's help people. It's more of that concept of, okay, can we create a charity that can sustain itself while also providing skills, while also providing resources, while also doing something to help. So it creates this cycle where it's self-sustaining, it helps more people, they can help more people. So examples include, for example, like a coffee shop. A coffee shop that is, it's started by a charity where they hire the clients that come to us. So when we're talking about, for example, at Nisa Foundation, we can hire the women that come and stay at the shelters to work there. They get experience, they gain skills. The money is also going into the I guess you could call it a business, but the money is going into the social enterprise. So it's not a for-profit. And it's going to build up that enterprise. And maybe if it gets to a point where it's even more profitable, it can fund other programs. So it can fund more programs that can be for housing or for any other issues that are more costly, for example. It can do that while also giving, women or, people that are finding it hard to find jobs, giving them opportunities to work, giving them opportunities to make income and not just get a handout, but here's a hand up, right? Giving them opportunities to work, giving them opportunities to make more money, giving them opportunities to get skills. They can take that and find better jobs and grow from there, giving them Canadian experience, all of that. And then at the same time, we're making money, we're profiting off this social enterprise that we can then use to maybe fund other shelters, or we can use to fund affordable housing, or we can use to fund mental health services. We can basically use it for anything, but we're able to sustain it while we're not relying on donations, because it's an actual project where you pay coffee, you go and get coffee from wherever else. Why not pay coffee? It's the same price, but here you're able to go and help, even if you pay a little bit more. You know that it's making a difference. It's not just going into the pocket of someone.
True.
And then at the same time, you're also then able to build up on that. You're able to expand it, so you're more profitable. You can create more opportunities. You can build more movement. And what I was saying earlier is that it can help other charities not rely on fundraising or grants or things that are not, you can't rely on as a charity. We've seen it happen where crises happen and right now the cost of living is high. People can't afford to give as much as they used to. And so these are opportunities where we know people are always getting coffee, or, another example is a thrift store. Another example is, I think we've seen people do like employment services where, they can support people working, like getting the skills and then working. And then they in turn are able to hire other people that go through the program. So you have like opportunities like that, and there's so many of them. And there's something that we all need, like, no matter what the economy looks like, coffee shops are still open and running, right?
True.
No matter what the if anything, when you're talking about an economic crisis, people are probably going to thrift store even more. So you're finding opportunities where people actually are needing an item, and you're using that to, instead of it being for profit, it's being non-for-profit. It's benefiting people on many different layers.
So, you know what? You talked about growth, and then you talked about sustainability also. So you know what, as a charity you grow, but then you have some programs also that are helping you reinvest in your growth of a charity. But you know what, okay, great, but now I'm thinking that Nisa Foundation is national, from coast to coast, east to west. How do you see that implementation of that at such a national scale?
I think it's definitely possible. I think when people, even when we started, they were like, oh, how can you grow outside of like the GTA? You got to start somewhere. We're not saying let's open 10 stores across the country right off the bat. We're saying start in one place, pilot learn from it, figure out the kinks and figure out all the issues. When you have a good system, you have a good model, and you have a good example to showcase in different places, because you probably would also need some seed funding, some capital funding to get it started. True. Then you're able to then build off of it and expand into the other cities, other regions, other countries even.
So is Nisa Foundation thinking of along those lines? And can we see anything in the coming year?
Inshallah, I hope so. I don't know if it's in the coming year, but we're going to start working towards it, because I do think that we're at a point where I don't think we want to, I think we're at a point where relying on donations has gotten us so far, but at the rate that we're growing and at the rate that unfortunately we're seeing the economic situation going, relying on donations is such an uncertain future for us that I want to create opportunities where we don't fully rely on donations or don't fully rely on grants, so that we are able to secure that, or even if we do, but if we're able to split it up, so 30% from here, 30% from here, 30%
all the eggs are not in one basket.
Exactly. We're at least like, if one of them falls short, we still have opportunities in other places.
And we have seen in very recent times, due to high inflation, our donations have really taken a hit, and due to other world situations, our donations have really taken a hit. So if we had this program somewhere running where it's bringing money back into our charity, then that would be very helpful.
Exactly. And it's also showing we're thinking long term. We're not just thinking, okay, give me a donation that I can use to pay the rent for this month. No, let's invest in our community. And what I love about our community is we're such an incredibly hardworking community. When you invest a little bit into our community, we take it and we run with it, and we build institutions, we build businesses, we build empires out of that little bit of support. And look at our parents who immigrated here, our grandparents. Do you think that they would have thought we would be in a place like RAS at this 20,000 people? And subhanAllah, they came with nothing, and they were able to build up all of this. So we have it in our tradition, in our teachings, in our blood, really, that we give a little bit and we grow from there so drastically, mashallah.
And you know what? Talking about hardworking, our community is really supportive too. So if we give them the right opportunity to, and I hear you say that often, that if people are willing to give, people are willing to help.
You just need to ask.
So now if you give them, listen, we just don't want your money, but look at this sustainable program.
Invest in a program where you're building skills, you're building, income, you're building independence and sustainability. You're building so many things. Like, this is like, if we want to talk about investments, like, I think this is like a winning investment in the dunya and the akhirah. You're also, you're getting rewards for being able to support a program like this that's helping other people.
Yeah, because you know what? Talking about inflation that we just hit on, that when the prices were so high, we saw people just barely making their ends meet. And then to think outside of themselves, help other charities also. And so let's talk about something that was hit the most with inflation, and that's the housing market. And I feel like we're like a parrot who keeps on talking about housing market year after year after year. But this year is literally one of the worst ones in so long. And we receive calls on a daily basis. Once I received a call from an elderly, and she first scolded me on phone, and then she started crying, and she's like, how come you guys don't make a rental apartment for us elderly people? And you expect us to live with our children, but now here I'm telling you that my kids are not here with me in the picture right now. What about me? Where should I go?
What about the the kids that can't afford? Even kids are struggling. Exactly. Even like, we're the first generation. Millennials are the first generation that are poorer than their parents. We don't have the wealth. We don't have the income. We don't have the infrastructure to support ourselves, unfortunately. And this is not a problem that happened today. This is a problem, unfortunately, because of bad policies, bad decision making. It's been years in the making. For example, the social services, subsidized housing. We haven't built any new subsidized housing since the 1980s.
Really?
More than 40 years ago. They have not built a single...
In Ontario, GTA?
In Canada.
In Canada? So the rental buildings we see, which are subsidized housing, were
Those
all
are from
built
the 1980s or before.
Oh my God, so many decades ago.
Exactly. And so again, look at how big our community has become.
So immigration hasn't stopped. The numbers,
it's gone up.
Yes, and just this year, the minister was so happy announcing that this year, the biggest we have, successfully included more.
This has been happening every year for the past 5 years, that we're bringing in more people, more record-breaking numbers. But how are we making sure that we have the infrastructure to support them, to sustain them, to give them opportunities where they can actually succeed and not come here and then end up being homeless? We have how many? If you go to the city of Toronto right now, they have the biggest population that's in their shelters are immigrants and newcomers.
So Yasmine, you know what? When I think about housing, I feel like we're in a deadlock. People keep coming, but inflation is so high. Do you see any solution to this right now?
So I think there's two things that I have been in my two ideas that I really wanted to, but I understand the pricing is very difficult. But one of the things for affordable housing that we're thinking about is we have so many developers and so many contractors, including in our Muslim community. What if we were to we're not asking you to build a whole development that's just, affordable housing. Build your development as you are. Give us 1 or 2 units. And if each of those developers does that, 1 or 2 units, you have 20, 30, 40 units, and multiply that across the country, you have opportunities there. And we're not even saying lose money on those units. We're saying have them rent them out at a cheaper price. We're saying sell them at cost. We're not even telling you sell them for free. We're not even telling you give it to us for free. We're telling you sell them at a lower price. That way we're allowing that wealth to circulate. We're allowing opportunities. And again, when people, especially for housing, when people get housing, everything else falls into place. They are more likely to succeed. They're more likely to be able to give back to their community. Again, we see this with our community. We give back. When we do better, we want the rest of our community to do better. And so when we give opportunities, we know that we're going to see the benefits of that. We're going to reap the rewards. Again, I mentioned in the dunya and the akhirah, but we're going to reap the rewards as a community because we're investing in our community's well-being, that they can do better. They can ensure their kids do better. The number one predictor for children to grow, to lead a successful and a life not in poverty is that their parents are not in poverty. Oh, wow. So it's not even them. It's literally, if you grow up in poverty, you're more likely to continue living in poverty.
It's like a generational thing.
Exactly.
You have one generation, you're helping all the generations that might come.
Exactly.
So what was the second thing you were saying?
The second thing is for seniors housing. So seniors housing is another idea because, when we talk about, affordable housing, the plan is that someone goes into the affordable housing a couple of years and then they make enough wealth that they're able to move out, get their own place. With seniors, that's not necessarily the case because unfortunately they're not working. They're, at the end of their lives, they're on retirement. There's not much that's changed.
The economics won't change.
Exactly. But if we were to create entire communities that are for seniors, and there's so many ideas out there. I've heard Zubair mention, getting them like tiny houses, and you have a bunch of tiny houses together. You have a community center for them. Maybe you even have a garden where they can grow their own produce. You can find a way to make it sustainable within that area, and then you're able to lower the cost, obviously, for them. They can make sure they live a life with dignity, a life of safety. They have a roof over their heads. We've literally at Nisa Homes, we've had seniors come, their family's not there, or their family's unable to take care of them, or they're unfortunately being abused by their family. So these are situations where they don't have a choice.
How would we sustain this project then?
I think if you're thinking about it in terms of like long term, you're looking at investments. You're looking at people purchasing for themselves, people purchasing for their, a lot of people are saying that I'll reserve my spot. So if you reserve your spot and you pay a little bit every year, like I'm in my 30s and I pay a little bit every year. By the time I need that place in my 60s, I've accumulated enough, and I'm, we're saying $100, saying $200, it's a small amount. So you're able to use that, invest it. You're able to help it sustain, and this is an ongoing. We're all getting older at one point, and there's other people getting older. So you're gonna have a cycle eventually, and if you're able to build it as an investment early on, so we all invest in this one pool, and then this one pool purchases those properties, and then once you get in, you're able then to continue that investment, and then once you're able, like the next person comes in, then you're able to. It's just like a cycle, kind of. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's a pool that we all are able to use. It's like we all invest in it, kind of like insurance. Right? We all invest in it, and then we're able to kind of, when we need it, it's our turn. We're able to get it.
But do you think that initiation of these projects, do they need to come from federal, provincial level governments, or from individuals or businessmen?
I mean, I do think it depends on the service that we want to offer. If it's something that's open to everyone and anyone, sure, government for sure. But we also know that the government, unfortunately, is very hard to get commitments and investments out of them for certain projects. And one like this, I mean, that's why our seniors home, our long-term homes, they're struggling, right? They're not getting enough funding.
Especially with COVID, we saw what happened.
Exactly. They're not getting enough funding. There's a lot of problems there. So it depends on the quality that we want to provide. We can provide the bare minimum, but is that good enough for our community? Is that good enough for our parents? Is that good enough for us in the future? I don't think for a lot of us, and I think because of that, it has to come from within the community. Let's pilot it again. We try it out. We see the success. We see that, and then you're gonna start to see others coming in and supporting it.
Yeah, it is a great idea, but I somehow feel like it's really difficult to even start. What do you think?
But every project we've started has been difficult. How many people told us, we don't think you guys can do Nisa homes? Once it's up and running, then we'll help out.
And then to be now national.
And exactly.
Coast
To have
to
10
coast.
homes. Yeah. Like no one thought we could do it. Everyone says this is so difficult. Everyone's like, so many people have talked about this idea and they've wanted to do it. And no one was able to. And I'm not to say that, we're able to, but someone has to take the risk. Someone has to, make that first jump. And then inshallah, the rest of us are able to kind of get in to support it and see the growth and see the difference.
Yeah.
Inshallah.
And you know what? You're talking about, investing in our community. So once our community does better, it will give back more to the same community.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's like a whole cycle then.
Yeah. So research shows there's research done by Forbes that found that women, I don't know what it is for other communities, but for other groups, but they found that when women succeed, they reinvest 90% of their income into their community.
Really?
90% of their income
wow.
goes back into their community to support their community, to help their community. And I think that that's very similar to the Muslim community at large. Even in COVID, when everyone else was hoarding, the Muslim community was giving. We were at the top of the populations that were giving. There's research done about, like, everyone else is giving less, and here it is, the Muslim community is the only one giving more, because we know when one of us succeeds, all of us succeed.
Yes.
We know when one of us does well, it means our whole community does well, and when one of us doesn't, we know that this impacts the whole community.
Yeah.
So I think all of us in the community understand the importance of making sure that our whole community does well.
Yeah, so true. And you know what? With the Muslim community, we know that zakat and sadaqah, if we give it, we are not reducing our wealth.
No,
if anything, we are
we know
increasing.
from
It comes back.
Exactly. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has guaranteed that risk. It's if it's risk that we've paid and risk that we've donated, we know that risk was meant to go through us to that person that is benefiting from it, and we know that reward was meant to come to me, even though I did not even benefit from that money, in the worldly sense, but I benefited way more than that. And that's we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has guaranteed when you give, He will give us more.
These two ideas or solutions that you suggested for the housing seems so exciting. I think we need you to have a sitting with one of the ministers or industrialist Muslim in the community so you can actually pitch these ideas.
Sure, set it up, Amber.
I hope they listen to this podcast. Any other big ideas you have, Yasmine?
Oh, right now I can't think of any others right now.
Another thing I was thinking about was, recently I read in the news that Ontario has again increased their minimum wage by 50 cents, but but it's still so different from the living wage. Why do you think that the government and we were social welfare, by the way, right? Our government. So how come we don't see the disparity between
I don't know if we're still a social welfare. We used to be. I don't think we are now. I think we're very neoliberal. I don't think we're
on paper or in practice.
Oh, in practice. Yeah. I think that your question is why? Why are we not?
Why does the government not see that this increase in minimum wage is still leaving people below poverty, because the living wage in each of the provinces is still way higher than the minimum wage you're offering?
Yeah.
Which adds on to this inflation, housing, affordability issues.
I think the very simple answer is capitalism. The very simple answer is that the reality is we have this concept that pull yourselves up by your bootstraps. We're in a land of opportunities. You come here, you're able to work, you're able to support yourselves, you're able to do all this. But the reality is that, yes, at one point in time that did happen. When our parents or grandparents came, that was possible, right? They came with $10, and they were able, everything was affordable. We're not at that time. And it is very hard unfortunately, for governments that have to profit and that have to benefit, and that their focus is the bottom line, for them to realize that when you invest in people, you're investing in the community. There's research to show, again, that when, even fixing the gender pay gap, technically you think, okay, well, that reduces the money, we're paying more, we're paying women more. They actually found that it's the opposite. When you pay women more, the GDP of that country does better.
Yeah.
Because they're able then to give back more.
Yes,
they're able
true.
to do more. They know that there's value in the work that they're doing, and they want to work and not sit at home and be like, well, I'm not even getting paid for what I'm doing, right? So I think that unfortunately the reality is we live in a society that is not built to support certain groups, and that's why we have the 1%. That's why we have the rest. Do you know that the average income in Canada is around 70,000? The average household income is about 70,000 a year. Who can survive on that?
No.
People
So
are
true.
living barely paycheck to paycheck. We see this at NZF. We see this at Nisa Foundation. They're one accident, one problem away from being homeless and losing everything.
So true. So true.
And that's because we still, again, our policymakers, unfortunately, have not updated their policies in time with inflation and in time with everything that's happening. We haven't realized the importance of investing in people and not just investing in buildings and infrastructure or investing in making the rich get richer.
Yeah.
It's become all about politics. It's become all about money. And it's why is it that we have multi-billionaires? You cannot even spend those billions of dollars in your whole lifetime. What is the point of them accumulating all that wealth while the rest of the world is accumulating less and less and less wealth every single year?
Like, that submarine that went all the way deep down, those multi-billionaires gave billions of dollars
They don't know what to do with their money.
Yes. And that one-day trip to space, again, they all paid hundreds of millions of dollars to get that one ride to the space. And imagine if they would have invested. How come they even have that amount of money to spend on these things if they would have only invested in the community instead?
Exactly. So that's I think the problem is capitalism. The problem is that the rich want to get richer. The rich are the ones that are controlling a lot of these things. And then what's happening is, as a result, the rest of us are not able to keep up and are falling behind and are falling into cycles of poverty where, hopefully our social enterprises and our other opportunities can help break that. Because we know, again, when one person does better, they improve the situation for their families, for their communities, for their country at large. They just need to be given that hand up, not that hand out.
So true.
We think of it as, oh my God, why am I giving you money? Go work and you'll be able to afford everything. These people are working, but they're not able to afford it. They are working. They're probably working 2-3 jobs and they're still struggling.
Yeah, and both the partners are working.
Exactly.
Still they're stuck in that.
How many do we know exactly that they're both working 2 jobs and they're back to back. They don't spend time with their family. Their families are struggling. Their kids are struggling. And then in the end, we're like, oh, why aren't you doing better? They're probably they're even like that concept that we have that if you're poor, then you're probably not working hard. They're the hardest working people we know, but the system is so set up against them. And then you start looking at barriers. Then you start looking at, okay, so you're bringing the system, the structural barriers that we have. You're bringing in newcomers and immigrants every single year. You're asking them, come to Canada. There's a point system. The more points you have, then the more eligible you are to come. But then you come to Canada, you have all this experience back home. You have to start from scratch. Your experience doesn't count. Your education doesn't count. And you have no Canadian
And you're at the bottom of the ladder then.
Exactly. And now you have to start from scratch. And you have kids already. You're not, maybe if you're in high school and you're a university, it's okay to start from scratch. But if you're in your 40s and 50s and you're at the pivotal time where, your kids are older, they're going to university, you don't have the opportunity to start from scratch. That means you are going to be living in poverty because you cannot sustain that lifestyle. You cannot sustain any lifestyle with that low of an income.
Before I let you go, I want to know your thoughts on one last thing. Debt.
Yes.
The insane amount of debt on every individual, and especially people in poverty, because they don't have enough money. And the lack of understanding of what debt does to you. It literally cripples you.
It gets to a point, Amber, where they're just like, well, I'm already in $20,000 of debt. What difference is another $5,000 going to do? I can't pay it anyway in my lifetime.
So true. You know what I sometimes worry, because we have received at NZF so many calls from Muslims, of course, where they're struggling in debt, business debt, personal debt, loan, credit card debt. And you know what? Just it's lack of education. Sometimes it's circumstantial. You can't help, and you think that's I really need to pay. This is the only way
and then
out.
you're given all these deals. Oh, no interest.
my
and this
God.
and this and then you don't read the fine print,
Yes.
and then there's no interest for 1 month, but then it doubles the interest
Yes,
afterwards or
true.
something like that,
Yeah.
right?
Do you have any suggestions of what can we do when it comes to debt? I know our society is built up on that. Banks work like that. They don't want
That's
you
how
to pay
they
back your
benefit,
loan. They
right?
don't want the
Exactly.
principal. You keep that. You just pay them the interest every month.
Yeah.
How do we? Is there any way out?
Well, I think this is where our halal financial institutions come in. Like, if we have proper halal investments and halal system that does not rely on interest, you're not going to have that reliance on debt. And then I also think that we've seen this in some communities here in Canada where we get loans from each other. So again, yes, the loans you like, there's an Islamic system to it, but if we are able to upgrade that maybe to a waqf for something where we give loans to each other for a house mortgage payment or university education or whatever it may be, instead of me going in debt with a bank and having to pay so much interest, now it's me going in debt to a community member, and it basically does allow for that. There's so much benefit in it because like you put that pool. So let's say we'll create a fund for education. So we put in 100,000, 10 students get it. Once they're able to, they pay back the 10,000 and then they put in their investment. So now we have 10 additional thousand that then increases the number that we can help. And then you're able to create a cycle out of it kind of thing. So you can create so much from just a small amount of money if it's done properly. And we have that long-term investment and long-term strategy to not have people rely on debt. Like, we can support them in turn. We have the wealth in our community, mashallah. But it's hard to set up a structure like this. But I do think that a waqf would be such a phenomenal idea to do for something like this, because you can't, everyone needs a university education now. Everyone needs a roof over their heads. Who can afford these things without a little bit of help?
Yeah. Wow. Great conversation, Yasmine. And we could go on and on because we see so many ways we can help the community because our community needs it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Jazakallah khair for your time,
Amber.
Yasmine. Till next time.
My pleasure. Thank
Assalamu
you.
alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.